Okay. Welcome. Show of hands, who's here for the first time? Oh, you poor victims. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Austin Sensman. Will Blackburn and I started this group summer of 2023. It's been almost 2 years. And so we really look forward to having you here. We have a couple of things to do before we get started. So, Jared, where are you? He just went to the restroom. Okay, great. Okay, well, Jared's going to come up here in a minute and tell you all about SlossTech, just because it feels like it just happened, and it was pretty soon, but it's coming up again. And so Tech Birmingham puts a lot of time into that event. And so there's some other things going on around it. Here he comes. Look at this. Yeah. All right.
Hey guys, how are you? Say hey.
Hey.
Hey. All right, guys. Jared Stisher with Tech Birmingham. I came here to talk about SlossTech for a little bit. Has anyone been here before to SlossTech? Awesome. I'm seeing some hands. So this year we're doing it for 3 days instead of 2. We're having a big pitch competition. It's going to affect early stage startups in the Southeast. We're also doing a developer-only track with Base. It's going to be awesome. Anything you want to say? I guess not. So check out our website, sloss.tech. We're going to have a bunch of breakout sessions, main stage moments, big keynotes. It's going to be awesome. Big block party as well, so I'm looking forward to seeing you all there. If you have any questions, please reach out to me, and I can direct you where you need to go. Thank you. Awesome.
Okay, the CFP, call for proposals and speakers and all that. It's open for SlossTech and for... Yeah. So we've asked some Birmingham AI adjacent speakers to go and apply to do some speaking there too. So it's going to be an event that just keeps getting better every year. So want to say thank you to our sponsors this month. So this month's meeting is sponsored by Savant Wealth Management. Jeff McCormick, thank you. You want to come say a little bit? Yeah? Yeah, come on.
Thanks, Austin. Savant Wealth Management is pleased to sponsor today. We are a holistic planning firm, wealth advisory, and there's just so much energy and creativity going on at Birmingham AI and Innovation Depot, and we wanted to be a part of it. When you Innovation Depot people, when you hit your success, we want to be a resource for you. But we know what it's like to bootstrap, and we want to help you while you're in that phase too. We remember what it's like. We all started that way, stretching a dollar, creating revenue, maybe supporting a family while you're at it. So give us a call. We're here. I will be available out here on Friday afternoons and Friday mornings mostly. Come see me. Reach out to me. Tell all your colleagues. And if you're not a member of Innovation Depot, we can probably help you too. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, and Jeff has also helped us get Del Smith here with Acclinate. So we'll be doing a fireside chat in a minute with Del, and he's going to be talking about AI at Acclinate. So we're pretty excited about that. We, of course, also want to thank the Depot. None of this would happen without this great space, and there's a team of people that support this event every month and make it go. So, all right, so Will and I started this sort of out of our intellectual curiosity. You know, ChatGPT came out in the fall of 2022, and I think we had individually downloaded it, and we thought it was interesting, and we were having lunch, and we thought, this is something that we want to talk about and sort of find other people who are interested in this stuff, and that is all of you. The first time we did this, there were 70 people here. A lot of these tech events, if you can get 5 or 10 people in a room, you're doing great, okay? So thank you all for being here. As we've grown, we've really leaned into this mission, okay? We want to accelerate adoption in Birmingham for everyone. We talk a lot about wanting AI to be a net job creator for the city. Okay, so lots of people's roles will look very different over the next 10 years. and we'll talk about that a little bit today. So we kicked off our Birmingham AI Fellowship. Kareem, you want to just wave? Kareem's one of our fellows. Yep. Corinne Ojeli Safran is also one of our fellows from Southern Research. And the idea here is we want to take some of the most advanced tools that are available to the public and give them to scientists and have them sort of push the limits of what's possible. So we're really looking forward to this, and we expect our fellows to have a speaking slot at SLOSTech. So it kind of lines up with the end of the fellowship, so you'll be able to hear from them toward the end of this. We are hiring a full-time director for Birmingham AI. There was some confusion about some links and things last month. I will send another email out about this, but we're actively looking for someone to do this all day, every day. We think there's that much need in Birmingham. So if that's you or somebody you know, please send them our way, okay? If you're at this meeting for the first time, you should know that we email this presentation out after every meeting. So if there's a link in here or something you want to see, you're going to get in your inbox tomorrow, okay? We're also going to kick off a survey. It'll be in your inbox tomorrow morning. And we just want to ask some questions to this audience. We want to get to know you better. This is a community event. It's not really about us. You guys are our customers. We want to make sure you're hearing and experiencing the things that bring you value in this room, okay? So if you could spend a few minutes doing that when you get it. We have some Birmingham AI t-shirts that we, need to give out. So we'll, give out a few of those for people who respond, okay? All right, so who was at the meeting last month? Okay, great. So this is just a bit of a side note, but we talked about ChatGPT last month, and we talked about this model picker in ChatGPT where you get to choose which model you want to use, and we made the comment that this thing sucks, okay? And funny enough, while we were having that conversation, the CEO of OpenAI also said this thing's bad, and we feel that he heard us, okay? This is what ChatGPT looks like today, okay? These are all the different models up here. These are all different things they can or can't do. This is a mess, okay? So part of what he promised in that tweet was GPT-5, the next thing that comes out, is going to be a tool that's like a router for all these different models where you don't have to go pick the model. You just have one model to interact with, and it knows when to use these different pieces for you. This is going to be a massive simplification. So it's something to look forward to sometime in the next 3 or 4 months. All right? It's pretty wild when you look at it up on the screen, okay? So yeah, so if you've been feeling anxious about how to use this tool, this is part of it. And it's not just that. That's just ChatGPT. There are like 4 or 5 other tools like this that you could also choose, and they also have all these different options in them. So there's a lot of noise right now. This is not getting simpler right now. But we sort of expect it will get simpler this year. So I just wanted to point this out. This is a bright spot, and we'll talk about it when it happens, okay? All right, so the agenda for today is I'm going to talk for about 15 minutes, okay, about artificial general intelligence. And then Will and Dell are going to come up here and have a chat about Acclinate and AI, okay? I struggle every month to figure out the best thing to share with this group, okay? And to me, this felt very timely. I've been on a couple panels in the last month where there was this question asked, when do the panelists think that we will have artificial general intelligence? Some people were at the marketing panel I did last week, and I felt like the 3 other panelists gave non-answers to this question, okay? Is that fair? I said as much at the time. I think it's important for everyone to have an opinion about this, okay? And if this is your first time experiencing this, I'm just going to walk you through what this is about. But it's important to have an opinion about this because it shapes a lot about what you think the future is going to be like, and that informs the decisions you might make today about your role or where you work or what you focus on, et cetera, okay? So the first thing here is nobody has the same definition for what this means. And so you have people making predictions, they're sort of talking about wildly different things, okay? So I would start in trying to have a sense of what you mean by artificial general intelligence. Okay, so this is just one definition of intelligence, but one way to think about AGI is that it's an AI system that meets human capabilities in most areas, okay? And so I have some specific things that I think about that I'll share with you. If you've been here before, these are the 5 levels of AI. This is OpenAI's model, right? And you can see we're sort of advancing from the top all the way down to the bottom. If it's your first time here, this might be your first time seeing this. But the idea is, as they produce new models and new software, that we'll get down to this point where an AI system can run a whole company. Okay, that's sort of what they're suggesting. All right. So somewhere in here, from the beginning, like down to the end, probably is AGI. Okay, but where is that? And so here's some things that I would say are part of my personal definition. And these are just examples. It's sort of the way I think about it. If an AI system could run a whole sales process, right? Like I could hire you AI, you're gonna research who to talk to, you're gonna call them, you're gonna talk to them, email them, you're gonna run them through the demo, you're gonna work up the proposal, get it signed, all of that, right? So importantly, this means autonomously, all right? Could an AI run a full scientific research process from beginning to end and get a peer review paper published? Could AI research, write, publish, and promote a book? So not just write a book, but talk to the publishers, work out a deal, get the first draft in, cycle through it, promote the book, go on podcasts, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? So when I think about AGI, these are some of the things that I think would fit the bill. So I'm encouraging everybody to have some sense for you about what this might be. Because this is going to be a conversation that comes up a lot. And to be a good participant in that conversation, you should have an opinion. I think this kind of stuff will happen roughly 2028. That's like 3 years from now. And that seems pretty wild and a little sci-fi, I think. So I think it'll be a fast takeoff. So I'm going to introduce you to some of the terminology that people who talk about this a lot, these are the words they use. So if you hear people talking about this, is what they're talking about. So what is AGI? And then when do you think it's going to happen? And will it be a slow or a fast takeoff? So a fast takeoff means soon, basically. Now, there are a lot of people who think, oh, yeah, those things I put up on the board, yeah, AI is not going to be able to do that for probably another 10 or 15 years. Okay? That would be a slow takeoff. Okay? There's no right or wrong answers here, okay? I don't want you to hear what I'm saying and say, oh, yeah, that's what it is. I'm sort of encouraging you to have an opinion yourself, but I'm going to share what mine is. All right? So this is Moore's law, okay? So the idea that our compute capacity basically doubles every 2 years, right? Or how much compute can fit on a single kind of chip, so to speak. And by 2030, a computer will have as many neurons in it, so to speak, as we have in our brains. It'll have the same sort of computing power as a human brain. And Ray Kurzweil, who talked about the singularity, he was talking about AGI, and this was the way he thought about it. So just from a hardware perspective, if a computer is running the same kind of hardware we are, so to speak, that would be a good way to think about when this might happen. So that's about 2030. And this is a variation of a chart I showed in January. But these green models are all of the non-thinking models, GPT-4, Gemini. And the pink models up here are all of the new reasoning models. And this is how well they do on a math benchmark. So if you were here a couple months ago, basically none of these models could get more than 10 or 15% on this set of really hard math problems. And then all of a sudden, at the end of last year, they started getting 80%, 85, 90%. They started acing these things, okay? And so this isn't a linear improvement. This is a massive acceleration. So I'm looking at this stuff and trying to extrapolate out how fast this is going to happen. And I think 3 years is sort of my time frame based on this kind of stuff. I also like the little stick figures. That's you. Okay, so another way to think about fast or slow, for some companies, this is going to happen real fast, okay? Anybody use Chegg for schoolwork? Why are y'all laughing? What, these guys? Yeah, these guys got wiped out. So Chegg, if you're my age, you had Cliff's Notes, okay? Right? For younger people, that kind of went away. You had Chegg, and it was a piece of software you used, and it would help you study. So ChatGPT just destroyed their business, and it happened at a pace that they didn't have time to respond. And we call this product market collapse. It's sort of the opposite of product market fit, where all of a sudden you don't have a business anymore. I was speaking to a group of investment professionals a few weeks ago, and they were asking me to pick winners, pick stock winners. And I suggested maybe focusing on picking losers, because they're going to be companies that are very vulnerable to this kind of thing. So for Chegg, this happened fast. And this will happen to quite a few companies in the next 5 to 10 years. But yeah, their stock, this is when ChatGPT launched, by the way, is the line. All right? So they're gone. I mean, they're suing OpenAI, but they're not going to get anything. They're done, okay? AI is going to start competing with you this year, all right? Sam Altman told their investors recently that they're going to start selling agents that you can hire, like hiring a person. They're going to be $2,000 a month, $10,000 a month to hire a software engineer, $20,000 a month to hire an extremely capable research, like PhD level researcher, okay? So in the next 6 to 12 months, someone's going to have the option of hiring you or hiring one of these people, all right? That's happening right now. So that may be one definition of your AGI. This is not such a bad definition. Someone could hire this thing to do $150,000 of salaried work every year. That feels, like a pretty good definition. That's happening right now. OpenAI has this deep research tool. Who's used this? Just out of curiosity. Yep, we talked about this a little bit. So Tim Berners-Lee got some of his smart PhD buddies together, and he had them use this tool. And he asked them to write a research paper in their field of expertise using the tool. And then he asked them, how many hours would you have spent doing that? Okay? And they compared it to Google's tool as well. But you see here the number of people who said, it saved me more than 10 hours of work. Now, if you've used deep research, it takes about 5 to 10 minutes to do one of these. Okay? So Tim Berners-Lee probably has some smart friends, okay? And they said this tool that's available today will do 10 hours worth of work in 10 minutes. And this is not lightweight work, right? This was like serious PhD level smart stuff, okay? So that's today. That's right now. I personally use this tool. I felt the same way. I think I shared this when we talked about it. I had it do some tax work, not like filing my tax returns, but like some analysis of how I could be more tax efficient in my business. I think it was easily $2,000 worth of work. Like if I had taken it to an attorney or to an accountant, all right? And the quality of it was very high. In fact, I shared it with my lawyer and we talked about it. And he said, yeah, that's great. In fact, there are a couple of things in here that I didn't think of. Okay? And it took 5 minutes and it basically cost nothing. Yeah. It was just an email, so I don't know. They charge in tenths of an hour, right? I think it was probably 2/10 of an hour. So, yeah, that's funny. Google released something called their AI co-scientists. They shared it with the public. It's been around for a while, and they had given it to some scientists who, these folks hadn't published this paper yet. This was not public knowledge. They were curious why certain bacteria became immune to antibiotics. And they had done 6 years worth of research on this topic. And they had this tool proceed down the same research path, and it got to where they were in 48 hours. And they said it identified a lot of novel things that we're going to try now that we hadn't even thought of. Okay, so people make this comment, we're going to do 100 years of scientific research in 10 years. And that sounds ridiculous, okay? But that's kind of what this is. That's exactly what this is, all right? So this thing's out in the wild now for people who have access to it, you know? So that's just a few data points. I'm trying to help everybody calibrate on where we are right now, okay? And it's worth spending some time personally, you know, reflecting on just what you think about this. We all have different backgrounds, we're in different roles and different kinds of industries. And Will and I talk about this a lot. We want AI to be something that happens for you, not to you. Okay? And that's what this is about. To the extent that you have proactively thought through these things and thought, what can I do today to help be in a better position to avoid some of the risk here, to take advantage of some of the opportunities? If you've had that conversation with yourself, you will be ahead of 99% of people right now. Okay? So that's what this is about. This is my last slide. This is just some other terminology from the community here. So you might hear people talk about P-doom. What's your P-doom? This is what, in your estimation, is the probability that AI will kill everybody. Okay? You know, people obviously have wildly different opinions about this. So I thought this was very, very funny. So the worst thing about being annihilated by super intelligent AI will be the naming conventions. And now you meet your doom at the hands of me, Deep Chat 4.6 full mini preview to experimental pro beta 3.3V turbo deluxe omni. Please hurry up with the humanicide. So this felt very funny to me, even though it's maybe the end for all of us. Okay, so that's just my quick update. If someone asks you, when do you think we'll have AGI? I hope you can tell them, well, I go to Birmingham AI recently, or regularly, and I have an opinion about this. And I expected opinions about this to be pretty wide, all right? Some people think AGI has already happened. And we just, you know, didn't really change our lives that much. It's already happened. Some people say, oh, we're like 10 or 20 years away from it, okay? But these sorts of things are happening. This will happen. It seems likely that AI will, at some point in our lifetimes, meet or exceed our abilities to do many tasks. Let me say this right. In 2018, 60% of the roles, like job titles, things like that, didn't exist in 1940. So they're just like new roles entirely. You can think of a lot, probably most of our jobs didn't exist in 1940. I sort of expect the same thing to happen by 2040. Another way to think about it is 60% of the roles we are doing today probably will not exist in 15 years. Hopefully there'll be many new roles, okay? But I think it's gonna happen that fast, okay? That's pretty quick. All right? You got a question? Okay, great. So someone already tried to get you to hire an AI. One thing I talk a lot about in this group, and then I'll stop talking and get out of here and let Will and Del talk. One way I try to challenge people as a consultant when I'm working with them is, imagine everyone in your company had 10 new employees that they could work with today. So everyone now has 10 people that work for them. what would you do with those people? Like, what would they do? Could you even figure out how to get value from them? Okay, that's kind of what's going on right now. And I would suggest that everybody feel like you have hired your first AI employee. Like if you have used deep research and you use it regularly, you essentially have hired your first AI employee already. You have somebody doing weeks of research for you every day, okay? So, thank you, and I'm gonna hand it over to Will and Dell.
Thank you, Austin. All right, Dell Smith, if you don't mind coming on up, appreciate it. Let's see where I'm at. All right, let's give Dell a round of applause for being here today. Thank you, Dell. Wherever you're most comfortable. We'll leave this space in the middle here. Well, great. Dell, I thought we would start by... Oh, yes. Okay, we're trying out something new today. We're going to try out this QR code during the talk. If you have a question, hopefully that will link you to a page where you can post a question. And then at the end, if we have a few minutes, we'll take some of the questions from that and ask Dell. So Dell, thank you so much for being here today. I would love to start by you kind of catching us up on where you are. How did you get here with Acclinate? And what about the mission really is so interesting that you want to spend all of your time on it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. This is a packed room, so it's good to see the enthusiasm in Birmingham for this. I'll give a really quick kind of background so we can get to some meat of the questions. But, you know, for me, the whole origin for Acclinate was when I was in my teens. My mom was a nurse. I saw her for many years doing home health care. Unfortunately, she contracted tuberculosis from one of her patients, and after about a year being in and out of the hospital, she passed away when I was 19 years old. About 3 months later, we were in Atlanta, had a research institute reach out to me and say, hey, we've got this clinical trial going on, want to know if you want to be part of it around tuberculosis. And I was like, well, it's kind of late because my mom's already passed away. And so that really kind of stuck with me, the fact that we were in and out of the hospital so many times that we never got the information. Then I also thought about my mom. She was a healthy skeptic of the healthcare system, and I don't know if she would have agreed to be part of the trial. So that was like a seed that was planted. I went on, served some time in the military, spent some time working for various healthcare organizations, had a couple tech startups that I started and sold, and eventually ended up getting my PhD. So I have a PhD in business from University of Alabama many years ago. Spent about 15 years as a business school professor, and 6.5 years before starting Acclinate in 2020, I was dean of the business school at Alabama A&M University. And so, you know, got to a certain point in life, and this is started the company officially in February of 2020. So if you can think about what that date means, right? And the idea there was really one of just really leaning on that background and thinking about how can we create a better platform and system to be able to ensure that that we ensure we have adequate representation for clinical trials. And, you know, the example I'll kind of close with is many people know about albuterol, which is used for asthma. But what they don't know is that it's about 50% less effective in Puerto Ricans and African Americans. And the primary reason for that is because there weren't any in the clinical trials to determine the difference. And unfortunately, that's just one example of many drugs that have different levels of efficacy and even negative side effects based upon a person's race or ethnicity. And so that's really one of the issues that we're addressing with our company, is to ensure that we access, engage, and empower communities to be able to make informed decisions about clinical trial participation.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, so maybe segueing from that, we talked a little bit about the mission behind Acclinate. How are you trying to solve that? How are you able to increase diversity in these studies? And then as it relates to the audience here today, how are you using AI or leaning into AI to help you in that mission?
Yeah, back in 2019, you know, I started thinking about algorithms that could help us better predict when someone was ready to be part of clinical research. And so I created this concept called participation probability index, which really utilized this kind of predictive algorithm approach to make that determination. Filed a patent on that about a year later. Just got the patent in December, just to let you know how long it takes these things to work. Oh, thank you. I'll take that. Yeah. You know how difficult that is. And so I wasn't thinking it was actually going to go through with all the admin. But to your point, so, that was our platform, our technology platform for that. And so it was very much based upon a predictive algorithm, a predictive piece of it. And over time, I mean, we currently are doing business with 6 out of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies. We located our headquarters here in Birmingham in 2020, end of 2020. We started in Huntsville, so have an office there, and just continuing to grow. So we've got about 55 folks and continuing to grow. And then now we're integrating more of the generative aspects into our platform, what we do. So if you think about our company, it's like a double-sided marketplace. On one side, we have a community team that just goes out into communities across the United States. I think today we've got people in DC and Philly and Detroit engaging in the communities. But what they're doing there with this kind of boots on the ground approach is getting people into a digital platform that we've created called Now Included. It has about 140,000 people across the United States right now. And that sustained engagement with those individuals builds trust, but it's data. And it's that trust and data that we are constantly running through our algorithms and our modeling piece to get better of saying, okay, Jane's been engaging with us for the last 4 months about breast cancer. So, we now have a trial in her area. This will probably be the most appropriate time to present that trial to Jane so she can make an informed decision about whether she wants to participate. And that's what we do as a company.
That's awesome to hear. I think this is one of the reasons why we were so excited to have you up here, is because you use both traditional AI on the predictive side, but then you've also really leaned into the generative AI over the last few years and just seeing that engagement increase. Are there other parts of the business where you're leaning into generative AI, and maybe it's internal to internally run the business, or just another example?
Yeah, so it's funny because like all of our team members, I'm like, I think the second oldest. I'm an old man. I've got like a 31-year-old son and 2 grandkids, and I'm up there. But I'm the one that's like preaching so much about the power of this AI and how it's going to disrupt our industry. And I bring that up because, as for example, I mean, we've hired 13 people so far this year, and we have hiring plans to do 33. And as of 3 weeks ago, I said, pause, stop. And, my head of HR was like, why are we doing that? I was like, because I'm looking at these positions, and I know specifically that some of these positions are not going to be needed based upon the way things are changing. And so I would say that, that's really important, kind of going back to a point that was made earlier. But more specifically to your question, we would have project managers who would generate these reports out of all this data that we have and have these weekly or biweekly meetings with our pharma clients. And we had our engineering team, and I said, it's taking too much time for us to generate these reports. And so we had enough reports to know what we wanted to present with them. And so, after about a 2-month challenge to our engineering team, they came back and said, hey, you see this report here? He's like, it was all created by AI. And I'm like, what? I mean, all the way down to the pictures and our colors and the templates and the wording. And I was like, okay. And in my mind, I was like, 2 less project managers needed this year. Dealing with our content, we have content writers that are health experts, and some of these people have MDs and have MPHs, Masters in Public Health, that are to be writing content and communicating with our team. Probably half of our content that goes out to our community now is generated through AI, and so again, we actually let one of our medical content writers go, and my team was like, are we going to rehire someone? And I was like, no, we're not. We don't need it anymore. So it's changing that significantly.
Yeah. So like Austin, I've had the chance to participate on a few panels, and like Austin, I've been disappointed sometimes by when people kind of step around some of these sensitive issues. People don't like to hear that we don't need to hire somebody, or that we don't need to fill this position. But I guess from your perspective, what does that let you do instead? Where are you able to spend those resources or spend that time, and why is it important in a competitive market?
Yeah, I'll say this to go along with that, because I think the statement on its own sounds like I'm really cold. I preach this in an increasing volume to our team to say, as an individual in your current role, you should be leaning into how your position and your role is going to be influenced by AI, and be proactive in that approach. And I'm doing that more increasingly, because there's going to be a point in time with our company where I'm going to look at team members and say, listen, the traditional way of doing that work, you're killing it. But I see no sign or very little signs that you're going to figure out how to leverage these tools to advance and have greater productivity at a lower time and lower cost. And so, you've heard this story before. I'm sure you guys talked about it. There's a race to see who can create the first one person $1 billion company. And I think that we're probably not too far away from that. Well, we're not going to be quite at that extreme, both in terms of revenue and number of employees. But I'm to the point where I don't see us having more than 100 employees and being able to accomplish our next goals 2 to 3 years from now. And frankly, that's significant when you look at the majority of your costs, your expenditures every 2 weeks that come out of Gusto is payroll wise. And so it actually gives me a sense of optimism that we can continue to grow and increase margins and do it in a way where we're adding even additional value both to our community and to our pharma clients. And so it's from a business standpoint, there's really not a downside to that. And so because of that, I can't not make a decision to do the things that I've talked to you about in terms of making adjustments to our hiring plan.
Yeah. We have an ambitious goal here at Birmingham AI, which is to make AI a net job creator for Birmingham. And we say that, and sometimes I see the heads nodding in the crowd, and I don't think everybody understands how ambitious of a goal that might be. And there are going to be a lot of new jobs created, but it's going to be really interesting to see over the next few years kind of how this plays out. Is there an area in your business where you're just really excited about the combination between the great employees you have and how they leaned into the tools? You gave the engineering example, and that might be the one you want to point back to, but...
Yeah, the disruption that's going to be here as a result of that. I'm so appreciative to see so many people in this room because they're going to have a huge leg up when you look at the data down the road and be like, who is in this room and how have they been impacted both, personally and economically as a result of it. I imagine you're probably going to find ways, many of you, to take advantage of it. But, I talk about it with our product. So we have a technology product we sell to pharma, and it's this beautiful thing because it's we charge for this product, and almost on a weekly basis, we're going back to our existing clients and be like, we've got more capabilities, we've got more features, and we're not charging them more for it, and so it just increases the value in it, and so it's significant in that case. Same thing with our community, right? We've got this product called Health Sense we just released, where it basically goes out there on TikTok and Instagram and social media and YouTube and just captures in real time what people are thinking and talking about when it comes to their health. And it becomes all one source, and then a report is generated from it. And so it's at the click of a button we can do that. And so we've done some work with a couple of government entities that are interested in understanding how do communities think about vaccines if we were going to have another pandemic. How should we approach that? And we're like, well, guess what? We can click on some buttons and tell you right now what people are thinking. So it opens up new revenue lines as well too. But I want to come back to this point of just we hired a director of AI. We actually hired him with the transition from Lilly. I don't want to say from Lilly. And he's coming in, and I've given him this mandate. I've said, figure out ways that we can make our product better, figure out ways that we can add more solution sets and features that we can have additional products to sell, and then more importantly, or as importantly, figure out ways that we can become more efficient and effective in our current operations. And so part of his job is to look at all these roles and to say, what are you doing to produce more outcomes and produce greater value both to your team and to our clients, what you have? And there has to be an answer to that. You can't just stand up and say, I don't know, I'm doing things like I've always been doing them, because at some point that just doesn't play out. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, that was a good example. But it made me think, has anybody here put Birmingham AI on their resume yet, that they show up at the community? We got the fellow. Yeah. Maybe you should, though. I think that's a great way. I think about hiring software developers in the future, and the first thing I'm going to use as a filtering mechanism is how close to AI have they been? How good are they at using the latest AI tools? That's going to be the first thing I filter based off of.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I was just talking to our head of engineering, Brian Saxon, which he probably at some point should be on the stage versus me. But he was talking about dealing with one of our engineers, and there was something he was trying to do. He's like, wouldn't it be great is instead of pulling these levers on these filters that you want, that you could just go in there naturally and say, show me how many people would possibly be receptive to a COPD study in Detroit. And he said he gave him that challenge, and he bumped his head, and he spent nights and nights and nights staying up to figure it out, and finally came back and was like, I got it. He put a tool in place that did it. And I was like, that's fantastic, because if the answer was, I can't figure that out, there's a problem. I'm not the engineer, but that's not a growth mindset. That's not putting me in that direction that we need to go. So I've just, if there's anything that you can do sitting here, is having that growth mindset to say, I'm not sure how this is going to impact me, but I'm going to do the research and find out, and then I'm going to start taking steps to set yourself apart. I think right now you have the opportunity. You don't have to transform your role and your title and who you are and what you do, but you've got to have an answer. And so when I interview folks at this point, I don't interview as many people now, but when they get to me at the last step, sometimes I'll say, hey, you know this AI thing, how do you think it's going to impact your job? And that's all I'd say. And if they're like, well, I don't know, I'm not sure, I'm hoping it goes away if I put my head in the sand, right? Then I'm like, thanks a lot. And I tell my team, I'm not sure if I can give that a green light. But if they're like, listen, I know it's going to be disruptive. This is what I've been doing. We had somebody who did a certification on it. Like, these are the things that I just need to see right now to know that you have a mindset to understand that it's coming. You can't put your head in the sand. It's coming.
Yeah. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit. A few months ago, you had the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. and to talk to some politicians and some other business leaders, organizational leaders. Would you tell us a little bit about that trip and what that kind of showed you in terms of where we're at from a regulatory standpoint?
Yeah, I think this trip was like October of last year. And oh, how so much has changed. So Google is a partner with us, and we do use all Google products, Gemini for everything we do, Vertex, and so Google about 2.5 years ago, put a little small $250,000 in us and said, we just like what you're doing, continue to push forward. And so we've kind of been on the radar screen, and so they invited me and about 11 other founders across the country to come to the White House and talk to the former vice president's administration about AI, because they were tasked with trying to figure out regulations on it. Now, full disclosure, Google is like, tell them about how great AI is so they don't put regulations on it. But I was there really kind of advocating for this concept of just ensuring that we minimize or mitigate bias that is going to be inherent in these systems and the way that we do what we do. What sets us apart as a company so unique is that it was so difficult to get data to train our earlier models on, because when we said, hey, we need to train models on who's going to be part of clinical trials, all the data came back like, yep, if you're a white male and between these ages, you probably have a high probability of being part of a clinical trial, because that was the data that was being fed. And so we just had to really search and pull some levers. And so I'm really big on the idea that we just can't let this run rampant and let AI come up with whatever it needs to come up with, because it's going to exasperate a lot of issues, whether it be healthcare or economics. And so that was really the message. Now, of course, again, times have changed since October of last year, but I still do have the belief. I mean, I'm a business guy, and at the end of the day, I believe there's so much good that comes from this. But I do believe that there's going to have to be some level of oversight that I would love for the business community to take the lead on versus government to see that oversight happen.
Yeah, and so Dell wrote an article in the Birmingham Business Journal that you should go read after this if you didn't get a chance to read it when it first came out. One of the things you did mention in there was this challenge around a kind of one-size-fits-all approach from regulation, that maybe some of the regulators are looking at the big AI labs and might apply a blanket type of provision that even impacts a company like yours. And just wonder if there's any insight there around what you think they're going to do and what you think that they need to do to help entrepreneurs like yourself and what your organization is trying to do to really lean into this technology.
The one-size-fits-all discussion is, if you're looking at it, like the federal government was looking at trying to adopt these blanket statements about, how AI should be used in AI adoption and regulatory piece. And if you looked at these companies that are around the table and their use case, it was just so varied in terms of how they approach it. And then when you had conversations with Google and others, like, they were approaching this from a little bit different way. And it was just really obvious that passing an overall sweeping legislation about AI was just not going to be matched up with kind of the different use cases of it. And so that was the central message. and then you look at states, and then you have all these individual states, and you look at California, and there's been other examples as well. I think I mentioned a couple in the article that are passing their own or trying to pass their own legislation as well too. So now you get to this issue of like, depending on where I locate my company, that's going to impact how I approach AI and compared to, depending on where my clients are located or where my team members are located. And it just creates a lot of complexities that at this point, I just think it's too early. Listen, the AGI, I'm a believer. It's probably sooner than we all would think or hope or realize. Listen, it's so there's for me individually, I'm trying to get to an island in about 2 more years where I can unplug from the political to technological economic system and just say, hey, look, this is crazy. But but until then, leaning in heavily on this piece.
Okay, so kind of bringing it back then to your business. Oftentimes as entrepreneurs, we can get this mentality that's like, all right, I'm only going to care about what I can control. Like this stuff is bigger than me. Like there's too many people involved. So I'm just going to go heads down and work on my problem and not care about these other things I can't control. Is that your attitude when it comes to the regulatory space? Or do you have one that's like, no, we need to be talking to these people. We need to be influencing it. We can. Yeah.
My answer to that, so about 1.5 years ago, one of our sponsor clients invited me to come to just told you about client, to California as a vendor day, and they invited NVIDIA there, and NVIDIA gave a presentation. So if you think about a typical drug company, it takes them about 8 to 15 years to get a drug to market. Many clinical trials, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, all things that make us need it. NVIDIA stood up and basically said, we've developed a simulation that essentially is going to take this down to about 12 to 18 months, and our simulation will be able to tell you exactly what a molecule will do to the human body. And so instead of needing thousands of people of clinical trials, you may want to need 100 or so, just so you can validate what the simulation is telling you, but it's going to totally change the way drug companies work, all this work. So going back to what was just presented, guess what I was sitting in the audience thinking? We need to hurry up and hit these targets and get this company sold so we don't end up like that chart you just saw. And I use that story because there's a part of this where when you step back and you see the changes happening in the industry, it's hard to get too caught up on, why is this politician and this regulatory piece? You're thinking to yourself, I have to move because this whole ground underneath me is shifting. And so I've got to figure out a way to move fast. So I don't want to put my head in the sand and ignore those things, which is why I went to Washington and had those conversations. But time is of the essence. If there's anything I can leave with you about this, and I know you heard it, time is of the essence when it comes to our ability to understand and leverage and utilize this in a way that gets to the outcomes that we're all interested in.
Okay, so let's say tomorrow you took over a new company, industry agnostic. What's the first thing that you think to do with AI? Is it like really dig into the problems they're having? Is there some blanket thing around like we just need to get everybody more AI literate? Is there?
Yeah, I would love I like to do assessments. So like any new role, if somebody asks you, you're gonna say, my first 30 to 60 days, I'm really just gonna understand things, and I think that's important. But I would love to have an assessment. This is what I'm asking for our head of AI. Like, listen, I need for you to give me an assessment on how ready is our team, how ready is our platform, how ready are our clients, and that's going to dictate the strategic decisions that I have to make. And so I think, if I was being part of a new company, the first thing I do is you got to find someone who has that skill set to do that, because that still requires some people skills, right? You got to sit down with the whole engineering team and talk to them so you don't scare them. But at the end of the day, I need to have data to say what is our posture and how are we positioned in the industry, and that should dictate the level and the pace of change that we would need to make.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. All right, let's give a round of applause real quick for that. I think Della has proven that you were definitely the right person to have up on stage right now, because just your willingness to talk about some of these issues and not shy away from them is what this audience needs to hear. It's what we're going to leave today with and be able to walk into our job tomorrow as if we are walking into it for the first time and thinking, okay, what do I need to get done today? So I believe we have some questions. Did they come through?
I probably need to look at your device.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to hop over one seat and I'll
let's do
sit
that.
here? Okay. So some people did ask some questions, and so Will's gonna hand those over to me, and I'm going to editorialize a little bit and ask some questions. Yeah. I mean, I did have a question. I sort of casually alluded to the idea that we do a lot of scientific research in the next little bit, and it might surprise people. I'm sort of curious, like, being in the space you're in, what scientific breakthroughs from AI might surprise us the most in the next 5 or 10 years?
The converse, being engaging or interacting with AI and actually not just having the same feel as another human, but actually getting more than what you would get from interacting with a human. And so I'm a behaviorist by training. My mix is between technology and behavior. And so much of what we do as a company is that mix. But this ability to actually modify your behavior, the things that, when we look at TikTok and how the time you spend on Instagram and TikTok, and many of you are like, why am I spending so much time on this, scrolling? There's a system that's built to modify your behavior. And that's the thing that I think about the most. Is not just going to be about information and generating content, but it's actually going to be a point where our behavior is changing even without us really understanding and knowing it. It kind of sounds scary, doesn't it? But.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So, listen, we're not like doom and gloom here, but we want people to have an accurate picture of reality, so you can form a plan. All right. So here is some stuff from the audience. Let's see here. Do you need to be a software engineer to navigate the AI future?
No.
And maybe say a little bit more.
Okay. It's in roles are here. Every single one of roles, there is an opportunity. And I say opportunity to lean into this to understand how you can be more efficient. Right? I mean, everything from financial advising, right? That's going to change when I've got all this data in front of me that I can plug all my thank you. I can plug all my finances in, and it starts to give me some things. Then the question is, what is the financial advisor and the wealth advisor going to now give you in addition to that? And so it's not even a technical question to me. It's how do I lean into the opportunity that what's in front of us is going to present? And if you're not doing that, you're in trouble. But if you're just taking any step in that direction, I think at this point, you're okay. Not much more than that is going to be required at this point.
Yeah, so curiosity, being proactive,
growth mindset,
attending Birmingham AI regularly.
I'm trying to pitch this as best I can.
Yeah, no, I think
that's what you told me I needed for the check.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. If you run a company, you're a good fundraiser, So, all right, I am curious on your take on that, Will. I mean, as someone who works with engineers, I mean, it's probably the highest adoption rates right now are from engineers, but this phenomenon's bigger than just software development.
Yeah, so one, we're technical. Two, there's an incentive from the business owners to figure out how to get more out of their most expensive, least visible resource, which is software developers like myself. But I think the opportunity is for everyone, and I think that there is going to be, whatever you're an expert at, if you lean into AI, you're going to be able to push to the 10x of what we're at now, the 100x of what we are now, faster than anybody else. So lean into that.
Yeah, just real life. Like right before I came up, I had one of my team members like, "Hey, we got somebody who's wants like $12,000 more. They're interviewing someplace else. We need to make a decision whether we try to make a counteroffer to keep them." And one of the things that's in the back of my mind is like, I don't put them into the category of leaning into this growth mindset of AI. So there's a part of me where I'm kind of like, I don't know if I want to. And if they were leaning on the other direction, I think I would immediately said, yes, let's keep them.
So you've hired kind of a pretty senior role for AI at your business. One of the questions from the audience is, what does that person look like? Like if I'm trying to hire that person for my company, understanding that, this is probably different for different industries, but what's on that resume and what sort of qualities do they bring to the job, considering AI's been around for a while, but this is becoming more popular now?
Yeah. Well, one, they are our highest paid employee at this point. Spent a lot of time. So I needed industry experience, and so that this person comes from pharma, worked from various major pharma, and he came up as a data scientist. And then you can see how in his roles within industry, he was like that early person where these pharma industries was like, hey, we need somebody to understand this stuff, and he was that one. And so, this is where he is. Now, he's a good strategist as well, too, in the process. And I'm just going to say this, like, he's not an executor at that point. But again, you come back to this, I need to know the strategy for AI. And listen, I can hire contractors and buy tools and models to implement it. And so the strategy is really, really important for that role.
All right, this is the last question. There was some awe in the crowd of your youthful good looks. And so the last question is just, tips for maintaining a youthful physique and a strong growth mindset in this AI era.
I appreciate that. So yeah, just for reference, I've got 3 sons, 31, 26, and 25. I've got a 2-year-old grandson and a 1-month-old grandson. So we just can't get girls out for some reason. But no, I appreciate it. No, that's a good, interesting question. So I'll say this. So gray does not run into my family. I got a few gray hairs. So I've got a grandmother that's 90-some years old, hardly any gray hair. Someone told me there needs to be a clinical trial on that. There should be some good money. Listen, I just came back from vacation, and which is necessary in this. And the book I was reading was called How Not to Die. It's a book that's probably about 10 years old, but it just talks about eating and what to eat and processed foods and how that plays out. So just trying to live a life where, minimize stress. You get to a point in time in life and the things you've been through where it's like, I tell my team when everything's on fire, I'm like, but did you die? And they're like, no, what do you mean? I was like, in the world I used to live in, if you died, then there was a problem. So I would say the other thing is eat right, don't have a lot of stress, and I would say don't drink alcohol, but I haven't got that one covered yet.
All right, please give a big round of applause for Del. A couple of quick announcements, and then we'll let everybody head on back. So we have another meeting that is an engineering subgroup, okay, and it's tomorrow, okay, and if you're interested in that, sign up. It's a very hands-on meeting. It's a different format, right? Laptops are out. We're like working on things together, okay? We realize the way we've put the material together for this group, it's not very engineering specific, but we've built a space for that, okay? So if you're interested in that, that QR code takes you to the link right there. It's also right after work. There is pizza, but there's also beer. Yeah? Okay. So if you're interested in that, please. And it's not here, it's at Hardware Park. All right? Excellent group. Okay? So this is the QR code for this meeting next month. We love to have people, if you're planning on being here next month, go ahead and sign up right now. Okay? This meeting sold out this month, and it sold out last month. And AI keeps getting more and more popular, okay? So we're kind of at the point where it's just gonna sell out every month, and we'd like, if you're someone who's been here, we'd like you to continue being here. We love new people too, okay? But there's only so much space in this room. And that's all I have. Thank you all so much for being here, and we'll see you in April.